most complex part of growing tobacco is starting the seed properly, because tobacco seed is so small, it needs to be started indoors. Tobacco is a relatively easy plant to grow, with the proper planning and preparation. The tobacco plant needs full sun to grow broad leaves. Plants grown in partial shade will produce slender leaves. Garden transplants should be spaced about 2 feet apart in rows that are 3 feet apart. Keep transplants from drying out by transplanting either on a cloudy day or in the evening. Tobacco transplants should be watered thoroughly after planting and daily until the plant is well established. The farmer removes both the flowers and suckers from the plants to enable them to devote their energy to growing large leaves. It takes a tobacco plant about 60 days of growing to get ready for harvesting. Harvesting tobacco is a complicated and exact science. Your schedule for harvesting tobacco leaves depends on various factors, including the variety and type of the tobacco, the age of the leaf, the contents of the water at harvest, and the position of the leaf on the stem. Tobacco leaves are harvested from the bottom up. Each leaf has a different chemical content based on its position on the stem, and the leaves ripen at the bottom first. There are 3 types of leaves on the tobacco plant. Each is named based on their location on the plant. The ligero are the top of the tobacco plant. The seco are those leaves in the middle of the plant, and the volado leaves are located at the bottom of the plant. The strongest tobacco is the ligero. The seco provides texture and taste, and the volado serves as mild filler for the cigar. The tobacco plant normally has 16 to 17 leaves. Only 2 to 3 leaves are picked at a time, and only after reaching perfect maturity. Growing tobacco and deciding when to pick the leaves is an art, and requires years of training and hands-on experience. Every step affects the final product, the cigar. Harvest tobacco leaves in the morning, after the dew dries. This prevents the leaves from arriving wet to the curing barn. You can also pick in the afternoon, when the sun isn't as strong. The leaves are sorted out by size before being pierced on stalks for stringing on tobacco sticks. After the leaves are picked, they are taken to the curing house by tractor. The curing house is specific for drying and curing tobacco. The poles, each with about 100 leaves, are placed in the curing house at different levels. Based on the type of leaf and its size, they are placed higher or lower from the roof. When the tobacco leaves are dried and ready, they are removed from the poles and placed in piles of 50 leaves. The small piles are then arranged into larger stacks, and the fermentation process begins. The pressure from the leaves stacked up on each other, along with the heat and humidity, all add to the leaves' fermentation and to the release of their impurities. Throughout the clock, water is sprayed on the stacks of tobacco leaves to maintain proper fermentation temperatures. The heat in the middle of the stack can go up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperatures are allowed to go higher, the leaves will burn and spoil. It is a careful balancing act which requires 24 hours of constant supervision. This sweating process removes oils, sap, ammonia, tar, and nicotine from the leaves. Throughout this 35 to 45 day process, workers break up the piles and restack them so that all the leaves are cured equally. After stacking and restacking many times, the fermentation process is finished. The tobacco leaves are then moved on to the aging process. Normally, the tobacco is aged for 2 to 3 years before it is manipulated again. This process mellows the tobacco's components and transforms it into smooth and flavorful smoking cigars. After it has been determined that the tobacco leaves are properly aged, the tobacco is taken to a selected area where each leaf is hand sorted. The sorting is done by professionals that are knowledgeable about cigars and by categorizing each leaf by color, size, texture, and other qualities. The tobacco leaves are then stemmed by hand, one by one. This is a very labor-intensive task and requires precision actions, as any error could damage a perfect leaf. The stem is discarded and the wholesale tobacco leaves are placed in stacks for a second fermentation. When it is determined that they are at their prime, they are packed into bales and aged further until they are needed for rolling cigars. Hand-rolled cigars are pure tobacco and the choice of cigar lovers around the world. There are 2 basic kinds of cigars: long fillers and short fillers. Each comes in various forms and sizes and flavors. Long fillers use whole leaves to fill the cigar, whereas the short filler uses bits and pieces. Besides that, there is also a difference in how they are made. For long fillers, the roller, expert with many years of experience, selects a precise amount of filler leaves, blending various kinds for the perfect aroma, and presses them into a small bunch with a couple of binder leaves in one hand. Next, she rolls those leaves into the basic cigar shape, cuts the binder leaves to exactly the size and shape it's supposed to be, which she places into a mold where the cigar will stay for 24 hours. Periodically, the molds are taken out and the cigars are turned to improve the construction quality of the cigar and to get a perfect round shape. After that, she chooses a perfect wrapper leaf and places it flat on a wooden block. With a special knife called a chibeta, she cuts the wrapper leaf to exactly the right shape and size and carefully rolls the molded bunch in it. Short filler cigars are made with a different process initially. Instead of choosing leaves and pre-rolling them in her hand, she gets a blend of various leaf bits and places them into a rolling machine called a winglet. Then she chooses 2 strong binder leaves and lets the winglet do its magic. It is very important that the roller doesn't choose too many or too little leaves or doesn't apply too much or too little pressure, any of which would end up in imperfect cigars that either don't draw at all or are too soft. From then on, the process is the same as with long filler cigars. After the finished cigars are cut to precise sizes, they undergo a very strict quality control. Only the best move on to packing. Inferior cigars are recycled and end up as short leaf filler for the next cigar. The best cigars are brought into the aging room for a minimum of 30 days so that the various leaves have a chance to evenly blend into a smooth and aromatic cigar. To preserve freshness, some cigars are wrapped in cellophane, others are put into glass or metal tubes, and smaller ones are placed into tins with their own humidor. The cigar is now ready for shipping and to be enjoyed by connoisseurs and casual smokers all around the world.